Pretty dark there, Leonard. Are you, is it night time, is it?
Yeah, no, it's morning, but it's getting spring, so the sunset is a bit later already.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So how have you been?
Uh, yeah, actually, I mean, the last week I was quite ill, and on Sunday I was still feeling a bit weak. I did, yeah, I went out to have a walk, and then I felt like, oh shit, now I have to go to work tomorrow to teach 8 hours. And then I understood, yeah, okay, but that's something in my head rather. And then it was quite unpleasant actually, like Monday, Tuesday, because it was like working full, but not having recovered completely. But it was kind of okay because I could relax into it and just not think about, okay, how many hours are there left until I can go home. So it was kind of okay. And yeah.
It sounds to me like there's still, although you can say you're not thinking about it,
Mm.
that still exists underneath somewhere.
You mean this thinking about time?
Yeah, well, yeah, or maybe just not wanting to be there, about
Yeah.
how tiresome it is. So are
Yeah.
we talking about a story that's much more subtle?
Oof, I don't know. It's like actually in this week when I was home all the time and not being able to do a lot, I really got aware of yeah, me having an understanding of certain things like intellectually, but I could be like very honest to myself and see that some things are not that clear yet. I didn't really see through them, and it doesn't really make any sense to fake it, you know?
Yeah,
Uh,
of course, yeah.
and it's also okay that it's still there. And it's like an illusion to think that it's going to change from one day to the other. Yeah, but there is kind of, yeah, it's interesting because I could see that if I'm talking about this image, like to go to the fridge, knowing that there is no watermelon, but I still go there, then this is about, yeah, maybe it's not the right job for me. Maybe it's not the right place to live. And yeah, the thing that is really annoying for me, because I would really like it not to be there, is like this still like this idea about a romantic relationship. And it's not gone yet. It's but it's really I guess it's also really a habit that it was created over so many years that it's not will not fall off that easily. But on the other hand, my reference is always like when I quit drinking, I could not imagine how I could ever have fun anymore, or how I could have a social life. And then my ideas about how it could be without drinking had nothing to do with reality. It was just
Yeah, yeah,
thoughts.
just your
It wasn't
ideas. Yeah.
really anything to do. So I'm quite sure eventually those things will just, I don't know,
Yeah,
just
yeah, I get it. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so it seems to me that what we've got here is an opportunity to kind
Mm,
of drop down a level
mm,
into the more subtle stuff that's underneath. So we have the gross stories,
mm.
that are really the biggest ones that we used to have, and you see through them. I think you see through them quite clearly.
Yes, but
But
I do it intellectually. I'm very cerebral, you know. So
yes, yeah,
now I really I have sometimes moments when there is a aha moment, but it's not intellectual. It's like, ah, okay, now
yes,
I
yes.
really see that, you
You
know.
feel that at a deeper level. Yeah, yep, yep. So it
Yeah,
would
and
seem to me just one thing, one thing that could be we would invite
mm,
one deep level realization, one aha moment,
mm,
right? That would be, say, how could we describe it? That would be that no matter what turns up, it's it is what it is,
mm,
and that any idea about wanting it to be different
mm,
is just crazy and very likely to maybe corrupt the next moment, right?
mm,
But you see, if that does turn up, and as it turns up, you see that it is turned up,
mm.
then that will short circuit the corruption. It won't happen, right? So
Yeah.
we're not looking at getting rid of it because we can't. It'll go when it goes. It won't happen when it doesn't happen, right? But when we see it turn up, if we see it turn up, then all of a
Mm.
sudden it has no power anymore. It's hollow. It's empty.
Yeah, the interesting thing is also like I don't remember now the title, this book with the exercises for seeing, hearing, and so
Okay,
on.
the Greg Good book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For example, whenever I try to do the exercises, actually what happens is I read the exercise, then somehow I already know what I am supposed to see. And then it's like, not that I really see it, but my mind is like, ah, yeah, yeah, aha, okay, right.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
gotcha. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, so
Um,
what turns up for you there? So this is
mm,
the subtle level stuff we're talking about. What
mm,
turns up for you there is, oh, what my mind does
mm,
stops from happening what it is that should happen.
yeah.
Okay.
Mm,
Now, seeing that turn up and accepting that
mm,
will also change that.
uh-huh,
You see, now, so people have the wrong idea about intellectual stuff. They say, oh, it's not a body thing, it's just up in my head. Well,
mm,
it's if it is a body thing, it is also in your head,
mm,
right? The body thing doesn't exclude the head, it includes it,
mm,
right? So frequently happening in the head happens before or as the
mm.
body thing happens.
Yeah,
Right? So we need to welcome the fact that it happens wherever it happens.
yeah. The interesting thing is that I could see that uh, mm, there's I think why the mind anticipates so much is like this wanting to control, you know?
Yes,
Like,
yes,
and this is fear actually. And
yes, yes,
I
yes.
also noticed that, yeah, the interesting thing is that I watched this video about the fetters where Pernille interviews Angelo.
Hmm.
Um, there's one question, and it's interesting because it was also about a romantic, searching for a romantic partner. and she asks like about desire and ill will, and she asks like what is the ambition, the biggest ambition that fell away for you? And then he said like looking for the perfect romantic partner. And then the interesting thing was that he said, because you might think it's actually a desire, but he said it's actually an aversion to life.
Yes,
because
yes. Looking for something that's not there. Yeah.
uh, and that really clicked for me because then um I find myself very often like thinking about where could I move, and then it's so absurd because I like it here,
Mm,
I like the forest and the nature and the lakes, and then it's just like kind of, yeah, I'm not used to not living in Fantasyland because
mm,
Fantasyland
mm.
is something I can control. Some
Yes,
like
yes, yes.
not
Yeah.
really, but it feels like I can control it because it's like a story that I tell to myself.
Okay. Yeah,
And
yeah.
the interesting thing is that, for example, now when I think about, wow, I could move to Portugal and this is an adventure and stuff like that, then actually I understood that the real adventure would be to just, like
Yes,
not bird and not like always have a fantasy about something else, but like really um, explore what is. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the other thing
So,
has
yeah,
fear, actually.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So again, it's this is the mind kind of hijacking you all the time with these things. And when you realize what's going on, which you do, then
Mm,
the mind will hijack that realization.
mm,
Right? So it's still it's so it tumbles on one to the other. It's like a domino effect, right? And and so let's take for example that one where you go, um, there's this story about a romantic relationship, and then you go, but I realize that that's a bit of an escape thing.
mm,
So then the next thing to do is to go, I'm thinking about what that is about instead of accepting that it's there. Now,
yeah.
accepting that it's there does not mean that I approve or disapprove of it. It just
Mm,
means that I recognize that that is what is there. Right?
yeah.
And if you also, and this relates to the control issue, if you also recognize that even if at an intellectual level, that regardless of whether you think you're making a decision or not, that
Mm,
that decisions to do or not do just happen,
mm,
right? So what you do is you abandon yourself to the idea that if it happens, it will, and if it
mm,
doesn't, it won't. And
mm,
so what I'm doing is just waiting to
mm,
see whether or not it happens or not. I'll
mm,
wait and see whether a move to Portugal happens or not. I'll
mm,
wait to see whether or not a better job offer comes along. I'll wait
mm,
to see. So it's all this idea, and you recognise then that even that is a thought that I
mm.
will wait, because really whether I wait or not wait is not up to me.
Yeah, the interesting thing is also that I could see um, this idea about finding a romantic partner is stronger the more isolated I feel.
Of
And when,
course,
for
of course.
example, I meet more people and share, yeah, I meet my friends and I have this certain intimacy with them, then it doesn't come up actually. It's
Yes,
not,
yes.
it's just
So
like, for
So
example,
what do you recognize there? What do
that
you recognize there? That there is this desire for connection.
yeah, and there is like I think, for example, the alcohol, for example, was like a shortcut on the
Yes,
computer, you know, it's like the
yeah, yeah,
quickest
yeah.
way to feel relief or
Yes, yes.
being
And
relaxed. And
to fool yourself into thinking you're having connection.
yeah, and this idea about this like super intense romantic erotic relationship, maybe this is also like this shortcut thing, and then I only need that and
Yes.
nothing else.
So
And
you
that's
recognize that if that happens, that's great. There's something really good in that if it happens. If it doesn't happen,
Hmm.
that's just another story. If it doesn't happen, that's also great, but it's great for a different reason.
Yeah, and the thing is, actually, when I was ill, like for this 1 week, it was so good for me to be forced not to do anything. Because,
Okay, yeah,
and
yeah,
there was no escape, so to say. So I don't want to make it like habit, yeah, something that I force myself to do. But now I try to integrate that into my everyday life. So I reserved like 1 hour that I just sit and don't do anything. Of course, I'm still doing something, but
yes, yes.
yeah,
I get what you mean, though. Yeah. So it's
but
like a version of
not,
meditation. Yeah,
yeah, not meditation, just yeah, maybe it's like a meditation, but it's like
a version of yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So it's a moment. It's an hour of potential discovery.
yeah. And why did I tell this? Um, yeah, and what now that I'm doing that, it makes me discover, for example, that in this hour, I don't think about moving anywhere, or I don't think about any romantic partners or about a different job, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, oh, I for 1 hour I didn't really think about it and it didn't exist actually.
So what happens in that hour that doesn't happen? What's the difference? There is something going on when you do that.
Yeah, it's somehow okay. Only for this 1 hour, I will just stare at the ceiling, or I will just look at my plant, or I will just listen to the sounds around me, or
Yeah,
watch the cats playing, or something like that.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's like,
And it's like there's a commitment to be present.
yeah, and it's kind of easy because it's like only for 1 hour, not like this. I don't feel so overwhelmed by thinking like
Yeah.
now I have to be
So
always.
here's a suggestion that might be valuable for you, and that is that when you do that, that you give yourself an extra 5 minutes to do that whilst you are not sitting there just doing that, whilst you are moving back into your regular daily activity, whatever that is. Bring that same, just imagine that you can bring that same presence into whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, that's something that I did the last days, for example, and I think it was kind of okay. Actually, I'm still ill. I'm not that fit, so I have to slow down while I work, and I have to do some little breaks within the
Yep, yep,
task. So then sometimes I told my students, I'm still a bit weak, so maybe it's a bit slower today. And then I had some moments while giving the class where I just sat and I was breathing and
Yeah,
like
you're
feeling
just
into the
yeah,
body and so on. And also, it's kind of habit already that when I go out of the house to go to work, I it's like to check into the body, like to feel the ground under the feet and the wind in the
excellent.
face.
Yes,
So it's
yeah.
yeah.
So you're kind of already doing that, but
Yeah.
but okay. So what you could do when you're sitting and doing that, look for a uh, a, a a prominent sensation
Mhm,
that you can associate with that state. Right? When you're sitting and being present, you will find that somewhere in the body there's a certain feeling,
mhm,
right? And what you do is that when you're actually in the middle of teaching or actually in the middle of going to work or whatever activity you're doing, that you suddenly the thought will occur to you to look for that feeling
mhm,
and see if you can find it whilst you're doing that. Now, it's not going to take your entire attention because your attention is also on on working or doing whatever it is you're doing,
You
but you're
mean a
looking for it in the
sensation or
background. Sorry,
a
Sen-
sensation or
a bit more than a sensation, a sensation with a certain story attached to it, and that story will be about what it feels like when you are in that 1 hour. Right.
Mhm,
So when you're in that hour, look for the sensation. And if you can find it, each time you focus on that sensation,
mhm,
right, you just familiarize yourself with what it feels like. Right.
mhm,
And then when you are out, say when you're in the middle of teaching, in the back
mhm,
of your mind, the thought will pop up probably that
mhm,
to look for that sensation. Now you keep on teaching, you don't stop teaching.
uh-huh,
Right. But
yeah.
if you can recognize that sensation, then that's an anchor. And what you'll
Mm,
suddenly find is that the teaching will happen without you.
mhm.
You know what I mean? So you will be present and the teaching will just go on happening.
Yeah, it already happened that way.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. Yes.
Um, and I mean, the thing is, sometimes also on the way to work, and in this 1 hour that I'm not doing anything, I can't really describe, but I would say sometimes it's it's a bit psychedelic. Like, hmm, yeah, it's like sometimes there are, for example, yesterday when I spent this hour, I was just looking at my hand, and then I was kind of super puzzled by all the colors and the shadows, and then I was moving my hand a bit, and I was really like, wow, this is really
Yeah.
interesting. That's what I
Okay.
mean by
Yes,
psychedelic.
yes. Yeah, yeah.
Just
Well,
like,
that's of course not appropriate when you're doing other
yeah.
things, but
Mm,
even behind when that's happening for you, behind that, there will be a certain feeling that is that you can recognize that is like
mm,
an anchor to
uh-huh,
the presence, to total presence is what we're looking for, right?
uh-huh,
So, but even that psychedelic stuff that could be happening while you're teaching,
mm,
but because it's not, we don't want it to predominate. We don't want it to come to the forward and interrupt the teaching, but it can
mhm,
happen in the background. And it's like part of your brain can attend to that, while the
uh-huh,
other part is doing the teaching stuff. And it won't interfere with the teaching stuff. And you'll just be going to yourself, oh, wow, look at that in the background. You know, it's
mm,
just there behind everything. And
Mm,
so you've got this ability is quite natural once you get to it, that
mm,
you can attend to more than one thing at a time.
mm. Yeah, it's quite strange because I mean, I would not admit it in front of my colleagues,
Oh, of course not. No,
no,
they'll put you
but I
away.
was saying that I never prepare my lessons.
Hmm.
Like, always like
Yes,
spontaneous, but
excellent. Yes,
it's like super fluent and nobody really notices it.
yes, yes, yes. Because it
And,
works. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
and sometimes it's really like in the flow, and I have to explain things that are quite complicated, but then it's just as if it was coming out of my mouth, and
Yes,
I don't really,
perfect. Yeah, yeah.
it's
And
like
trusting that
automatic,
to,
I don't know.
it is amazing, isn't it? To be able to trust that it will work. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually there have been, yeah, it happened to me again and again that I mean, I'm doing this for many years now, but it still happens that I feel sometimes, oh no, today I can't. And then I'm a bit stressed. And it's like so weird because it always works
Yeah,
anyway.
you know it does. Yeah, yeah, that's right. It can't not, and it's got nothing to do with you and your intention.
Yeah,
It's
the
just
thing is
yeah.
that it's not about me because it's an interaction
Mm,
anyway.
mm.
So um, I cannot go into the classroom and not interact with the students. So
Of
it's
course.
going to happen anyway whenever I enter the classroom.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I get it. I get it. I get it. It's a bit like when I come here, like it's like who
yeah.
knows what's going to happen, but it always works out okay. So
Mm.
it's a case of you just reflect what goes on around you, and that's it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
beautiful.
why there is really like this kind of sense that is not um, agency,
Mm,
actually.
mm.
It's just happening.
Yep, yep, yep. But then there are times in your life when agency comes to the front, to the forward, or at least the illusion of agency does.
Mm.
And that's when you start thinking, oh, maybe I better move to Portugal, or maybe I better
Yeah,
do
yeah,
this, or
yeah.
maybe I better do that. Yeah. Okay, but so there's nothing wrong with that, that because you know also that when that happens and you see that it happens, that it's just old habit stuff.
Mm,
And if you don't fight it, it will stop coming back.
mm,
Right now, even though you've mentioned the word fear, and it seems like there is fear underneath, yeah, that may well be that we do need to go looking somewhere in there a bit more, but it may not either. It may well be that is simply that this last remnant of allowing yourself to trust that everything will be okay if you totally
mm,
let go.
mm.
You're so close. You're doing this so well already. There's just that little bit of a leftover that you haven't quite got yet. Because you go really really well, and then these other things happen. And that's not to
Uh,
say that you're not going well with them, but they do bring up questions for you.
yeah, mm, I it's yeah, I think it took a while to really understand that I can't do anything, you
Hmm.
know. Just have to trust the process or like things happening.
Yep. Yep.
And but I can see that there is something evolving because like those things are already like slowed down, so it's like
Right.
easier to look at them because yeah, and there are already things changing, I guess, but I think there has to be like a really profound understanding, but not, or like not understanding, but seeing.
Yes, yes, yeah,
Profound seeing, and then it will probably dissolve itself somehow. I don't know.
yeah. Well,
But
I don't know that you need that profound experience
hmm,
because you're doing so well on so many fronts. That stuff will bleed into the leftover bits.
yeah, it's like some things like this thing, the image that you used with the fridge. Um, I think sometimes because when I was in Argentina, I did um, cognitive behavioral
Yeah, yeah.
therapy
CBT,
for,
yeah.
yeah. And what I found interesting that there is this concept of uh, cognitive fallacies or something, or like
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
wrong beliefs about things. And then my therapist told me those beliefs or those habits can just die off.
Yes.
But before that happens, it usually happens that they get once more like really strong. That I found that really interesting. That
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. A
and
last a last ditch
yeah,
protective attempt. Yes. Yeah.
and I think that like some of yeah, there is already a seeing, but it's kind of a dead habit. It doesn't have, it's like, it doesn't have really the content anymore so much, but it's like, it's already dying off, but it's still there. And
Hmm.
I'm a bit annoyed by that because I would really like not to be there, but then it's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, let me tell you, they will be there until they're not.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So again, seeing that annoyance, and you do already. I guess you see it when you're annoyed about that. You see those things. Um,
But
yeah.
it doesn't help to be annoyed by it. It makes things
Yes,
worse.
yes. But you see that too, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's okay to say that there is well the story that there is a correct way or an appropriate way to of thinking. It's it's not true that there is a correct way, and it's not true that there isn't a correct way,
Mm.
and it's not true that there's a wrong way, and
Mm.
it's also true that there's a wrong way. So, but all of those things exist together at the same time. So
Mm.
an interesting mix there of things. So you kind of know in the back of your mind, and this gets a bit subtle as well. You know in the back of your mind that you don't want such and such to be there, right? Or that you think that that's wrong, right?
Mm.
Well, if that's what you know in the back of your mind, that's what you know,
Mm.
right? That's what's there. So it can't be wrong that it's
Mm.
wrong.
Yeah.
It can't be right that it's wrong, and it can't be right that it's right. So the reality is it's there. And if you go, well, that's going to cause problems, then it's again, see, it's always this thing of it's never about what comes
Mm.
up. It's always about why it comes up or what's behind it, to be more
Yeah.
accurate. So if the idea comes up that that shouldn't be there, it's not about whether it should or shouldn't be there. It's
Mm.
about why did the idea that it shouldn't be there come up?
Mm.
You see how we immediately just jump down to another level to look
Mm.
underneath whatever it is that turns up. So whatever turns up is a furphy, whether it's good or bad,
Mm.
right or wrong. whatever it is, it's not about that. It's always about what's behind that. Now, if it's a good thing that turns up, well, why do you wouldn't bother to look what's underneath it?
Mm,
But if it's something that part of your mind says that shouldn't be there, or it'd be better not to be there, then again, it's not about whether it should or better not be. It's about why did that come up? What
mm.
is underneath it?
Yeah, for example, what uh, annoys me most, and also there is a bit of shame about it, but then I was also looking into that, and that has to do with that's probably not my preferred version of myself, but that's like back to selfing.
Mm.
Um, when I was a teenager, I was like discovering that I'm gay. So I lived on the countryside, and the only way to be in contact with other gay guys was via the internet. So I used dating apps or like those things on the internet. And I did it like all my life, really. And I mean, all of my relationships and also a lot of good friendships that are like still existing were created by that medium. But now I'm like still using it, but I don't really know why because I find it disgusting. I mean, I find everything about it disgusting because it's like this way of communicating is disgusting for me. Like the way people present themselves with their photos is awful. The marketing and the business idea behind that, it's like, I think it's really harmful for the psychology of people and for in a social way and also a capitalist way. And yeah, it's just like and I still use it because it's kind of I live in a provincial town where there is no other gay people, so not to use it feels like to be totally isolated.
Okay,
So
yep, yep. So there's
but
a
I
couple of
don't
things that
want
come up.
to use it anymore. Actually, I don't it, and it makes me like, why am I still doing that? But it's
Okay,
like
yep, yep.
habit
See,
of
that's a
so many
perfect.
years.
Yeah, that why am I doing that? That's an escape from what's actually going on. So there's
Yeah.
two things that come up. One is what's behind finding it disgusting. The
Hmm.
other one is what's behind the desire, need, what's behind the fact that you still use it.
Hmm.
Right? Those two things. See, we're down underneath. It's not about what it is. It's about you, about what it is about you that A makes you want to use it and
Hmm.
B finds it disgusting.
Hmm. Yeah, the need is like what I said before. It's
Yes.
actually not. It's not really like having
Y-
sexual adventures or anything like. It's like the need to feel connected.
Yes. Okay. So what's underneath that? If you go down underneath that,
Hmm.
right? What is, okay, let's put it another way. If there is a need to be connected,
Hmm.
what is missing that that promotes that need?
Mm,
That's getting closer, much closer to the juice.
uh, yeah, before I told you that um, I always found it more easy to live in a fantasy because I there is kind of the idea of having control about my fantasy, and I guess somehow this like yeah contact have it yeah like entering into contact with people on the internet is also a fantasy, you know, it's not meeting someone on the street and talking to them.
Okay, so go down underneath that, right? So what the value of the fantasy is what?
Hmm.
It's not about the content of the fantasy. It's about the fact of the fantasy. What is the value of it being fanciful?
Hmm.
See, we're not actually looking for an answer. We want to
Hmm.
get to this very point where we can ask a question that we need to contemplate. And again,
Hmm.
we're not contemplating it to find an answer. We're contemplating it to watch what comes up as we contemplate it.
Hmm. The interesting thing is that suddenly I had like this feeling of, where am I? What are we talking about?
Yes, yes.
Uh, can you repeat it again? Like, I have to understand again what was like what was the question? What is underneath the fantasy of?
No, not the fantasy of, the fact of the fantasy. So you could say the value of it being a fantasy.
Mm, mm,
Nothing
mhm,
about what the fantasy is about. It's about the fact that it is a fantasy,
mm.
and there's value in that for you.
Yeah, it's that, for example, I might be in contact with people on this dating app, but I'm never going to meet them.
Right, so there you go. There's one thing, right? Now here we go. We've come a bit of a full circle, you see. You've got this interesting thing where there's this need for connection.
Mm,
But then we get down here and we've got the need for not connecting,
yeah.
rather for connecting in a certain way.
Mm.
Yeah,
And that's maybe the control thing. Like,
could well be. Could well
want
be,
to have
yes.
control about how I connect with people.
Okay, now let's get underneath that. And
Mm.
so then what is the need for control about? What does that sit on?
On fear.
Okay, so you experience that fear or did your mind come up with that one?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't really want to make a story out of this, but I think there is a lot of, um, it's very paradoxical because on the one hand, I want to be connected. On the other hand, I don't want to be too connected. It's like something I desire and something I fear at the same time.
Okay, so we can say what comes to mind so far is we can say we want connection, but we
Mm,
want the kind of connection that we can control.
yeah.
Okay. So,
Mm,
so then underneath that, we're not talking about connection, we're talking about control,
yeah.
right? And then if we're talking about control, we're talking about losing control,
Mm,
a loss of control.
mhm,
And of course, that's where the fear lives.
mm. Yeah, and I guess, I mean, I don't want to construct it, but then I think uh, I'm back to this childhood trauma where I was um, like bullied by my best friends in front of all the other guys in my class. So this
Okay,
is
yeah.
like you
Now,
like trusting someone and then being um, treated like that.
yes,
It's
and treated like that is where you have no control.
yeah.
So here we got this reverse thing that says if I don't have control, I'll get
Mm,
treated like that. Or
mm,
if I'm treated like that, I won't have control.
mm,
Right?
yeah.
So so yeah, it seems crazy, but what we've got is we've got this cellular memory, right? It's
Mm,
not intellectual. It's in the body, right? This memory of having no control.
mm,
And so guess what? Everything is built on top of that.
mm,
And so every time we get close to having no control, we start to feel afraid.
mm.
Yeah? Now, that can
But
be, you say you don't want to build stories, but in
mm,
this case, a story can be really valuable,
mhm,
right? And remember this, it doesn't matter to the brain whether it's imagined or whether it really happened.
mhm,
We are still going to respond in the same way, right?
mhm,
So you can use that and you can say, I will construct a fantasy of myself being bullied and not having control.
mm,
And then when young Leonard, the kid at school, is feeling out of control, feeling bullied, feeling afraid, the adult Leonard can go to him and have a talk with him,
mm,
right? And that's when you've heard me say this stuff before. That's when you can sit beside him and explain to him that it's not about him. It's all about the circumstances that he found himself in. It's about the other kid, and it's about all of that stuff. Nothing to do with Leonard himself. He's innocent,
mm,
just as the bully is also innocent
mm,
because he doesn't have control over what he's doing. That's what he's learned to do. So he's also innocent. So we need to forgive him, but most of all, we need to bring into young Leonard the idea that he is not at fault. There
mhm,
is no blame. There is nothing wrong, and it's not about him. Right? But
mm,
that he accepted the circumstances that he found himself in and took on responsibility for all of that. He blamed himself. So
mm.
then he feels
Yeah,
guilty. And then he
yeah,
feels ashamed that he feels guilty.
mhm. Yeah,
Right?
because um, yeah, it really. I think the conclusion was really okay. It's my fault, and
Absolutely. Yes.
I'm not correct, and I deserve this kind of treatment,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
not as good as the others.
Yep. Yep. Well, not
Mm,
just as not as good, but also different.
yeah, and then I guess yeah, I have like several memories of my father not appreciating of me, for example, when I was a child.
Well, wait a minute. Just not just appreciating or actually actively disapproving of.
Yeah, actively disapproving, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Did
Maybe,
your father
like,
accept a gay son?
yeah, the interesting thing is my father was like this left activist and he had gay friends, but it was still not the same to
For the
have
one
a
in
gay
for his
son with.
son. Yes. Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
so this went on not just at school. This went on for a long time.
yeah, and then also like this not talking about it, like
Ah. Yeah. Even worse. Yeah.
of course it's not in line with his ideology as a left
Yes.
68 student revolution guy. So,
Yeah. 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 Get it.
but it was, I kind of felt that, for example, I also know now that this kind of memories, it's just a negative selection. There were also like
Yes.
positive
Of
things
course. Of
in the
course. Yes.
relationship, but I think it came on top of this being feeling unworthy from this traumatic.
Yes. That's right.
And
Yeah. And the positive stuff doesn't sink in like the negative stuff does.
yeah,
Negative stuff goes deep for sure.
for
Yeah.
example, I used to spend a lot of time with my grandfather, and my grandfather introduced me into classical music and opera and stuff. And when I was a child, I was always uh, drawing pictures of like those fantasy
Yeah.
opera persons and stuff. And um, I remember I was watching an opera on television, and and it was something I really loved. And my father, I mean, okay, he was a Rolling Stones fan. He came back from work a bit stressed, a bit tired, and then he said something like, "Can you put off this nasty opera shit," or something like that. Or, for example, I was a very lively kid and I liked to invent songs and to dance and stuff like that. And then my father came back home and he said to me, like, "What's happening with you? Do you have to pee, or why are you so nervous?" or something. And those are memories that were like
Yes.
super traumatic for me.
Yeah.
Like, and also, yeah, that once when we were on a holiday trip to France in a caravan, and then it was raining all the time, and actually my father was always absent. So my mom, my sister, and me, we worked perfectly fine as a team. But when our father was there, it was kind of someone who
Uncomfortable.
doesn't belong there. And then there was like a fight between my mom and my father, and I overheard it, and it was my mom saying like, "Yeah, you are not so pleased that that you have a son who doesn't like football," and stuff like that, you know. So it was like, I think on top of that.
Yes, yes. So again, it confirmed that there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, and yeah,
But you
that
see this stuff very clearly, don't you?
yeah, I
Yeah.
carried that around me like for so many years, and I think I got clearness about it only when I quit drinking.
Yes, yes, yes. Have you have you forgiven your father, for he is also totally innocent in all of this?
Yes, I do, because I know his biography, and I mean, that was like the generation after the war where nobody would really want to speak because of the
Yep,
Nazi past and stuff like that.
yep, yep, yep.
Um, he grew up in a workers' family, and they didn't have a lot of money. They were like, and there was not a lot of affection in this.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
yeah, they didn't hug, they didn't give kisses. It was like they didn't talk about emotions, and he just didn't learn that. And for me, I mean, I feel rather a bit sorry for my dad, because I would say that he was emotionally handicapped, really.
Yes, yep, yeah. Which
So,
that whole generation was, but yes, absolutely, yeah, yeah. So that's sorry. That, it'd be good value for you to contemplate
mm,
what forgiveness is,
mm,
right? So feeling sorry for him,
mm,
it doesn't free you from, that. So if it's
uh,
pity, it doesn't free you in a way that forgiveness does.
a bit arrogant. Like, you,
Yeah.
like, you poor little one. Yeah, it's a bit from above.
Yes, yes, yes. So what you need to, at least in your mind, you need to be able to have compassion for where he is or
Mm,
was, and mentally be able to hug him with a genuine affection,
yeah,
but not
this.
not until after you've done the same thing for young Leonard and helped him to understand that there was nothing wrong with
Mm,
him. He was way he was, and that's it, full stop. And
Yeah.
that his taking responsibility for the pain around him was an infantile innocence. It was a lack of a perspective that recognized all of the conditions in which he was living.
Mm. Yeah, I must say that for me, I mean, I feared my father.
Mhm.
I was frightened by him because for me, he represented a form of masculinity that I found
Yes,
very impressive, like
yes,
passive,
yes, yes,
like um, like yeah, frightening. I don't know. I
yep,
always
yep,
felt I can't be me or I can't say what
yes,
I want,
yes,
can't express what I want because that's going to be too much. And then
yes, yes.
will
I get
become
that. Yeah. So at the
not.
same time as you fear him, I
Mm,
imagine that there was also some part of you that really wanted his approval,
yes.
which of course there was never any hope of getting
Yeah.
because of nothing to do with you or
Mm,
him, just to do with the circumstances of everything.
mm. Um,
So you can see
yeah.
how we've gone from 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 looking to having a pseudo connection with people on the internet, right
Mm,
down to something absolutely fundamental
mm,
with Lennart and the way Lennart is built, the cells in the body of Lennart. That's
mm.
where we're at now. And it's got nothing to do with that other stuff. That other stuff will look after itself one way or the other.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because yeah, it's interesting because really pity is not, it's not on the same island.
absolutely. Yes.
And
Yeah.
I guess that there was a bit of how competition in the end. I mean, like now I must say I don't really care so much about this subject of masculinity, but I guess as a teenager or as a young man, the father is somehow the reference for what
Yeah.
masculinity means. And for
Yes.
me, like it was the reference was for many years like, no, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to
Yes.
be a man who has to pretend he is like super.
Yeah, I get that. Very much so. I get that. And well, I mean, it hits home for me too. Um, but at the same time, some part of you
Hmm,
wanted some aspect of that. Now, no,
hmm.
certainly I accept that you didn't want to be like that because you saw that as what it was in a way, which was totally dehumanizing.
Yeah,
Yet,
also in my class, I didn't want to be the outsider. I wanted to be a part of the group. And of
yes,
course, I
yes,
wanted approval of my dad. And
yes,
after that, I developed this kind of Leonard, which was like, others are boring
yeah, yeah,
anyway.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to be this kind of man like my father,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah. And as you say, there's a level of arrogance and
Yeah.
superiority in all of that, but it is just an attempt for self-approval.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So we're so complicated. There's never you can never say one or the other. There's always everything all at the same time. Yeah,
Yeah, and I feel also that it doesn't make any sense to deny the desire to belong to a group, maybe also,
yep,
or to want approval, maybe, I don't know.
yep, yep, yep. And of course, you can do the same process. You can go under and under all of those things.
Hmm.
So So wanting to belong to a group, what's that about? Oh, I want to feel okay. You know,
mm,
underneath that is, I don't feel okay.
mm,
Underneath that is,
mm,
oh, I feel there's something wrong with me, and so
mm,
on and so on. You see, it all always. It's never about what comes up. It's always
mm,
about what pushed that up, what triggered it, what was underneath it. And then
mm.
when you find that, it's what's underneath that, right
But
down to a cellular level every time.
I would say there is already a sense of me being okay as a person. I mean, I'm not an asshole or something.
Yes,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, there are still hooks into this.
Of course there will be, and there will be forever and ever at some level and at some strength and some intensity and so on. And even at some point where we go just flowing on through and everything seems okay, things will happen. We'll go, oh, okay, there's something there. So we will. I don't think we ever reach. Well, certainly not in my experience. Do we ever
Mm,
reach a point where there's nothing left?
mm,
Right? But that's what makes us human. That's what part of the interesting journey is about. Yeah.
mm,
So it's like there is no Lennart. What
mm,
there is a whole bunch of conditioned responses, and as we go through this stuff, those responses change, but they don't ever stop.
mm,
They just get easier and more pleasant.
mm. When I was ill in bed, I was staring for a while at mm, the wall, and then there was just a tiny moment when suddenly it was so clear that there is not a center here, that it's like all that was really weird.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah,
was yeah, it seems so artificial sometimes, like all those layers of this personality.
yeah,
But,
yeah. But they get looser and looser and looser. Yeah, until in the end there is there. So to say there's no Lennart here is not to say that there's something else here,
mm,
but it's also to say um, some, something is still happening.
mm,
So it's like the happening becomes like a gas or a breeze. It's something that is indefinable that is happening, and what we do with our mind is we make it solid, and then we call it Lennart, and then we have relationships and so on and so on. Yeah. So at some level, and now we're not going to live at that level where suddenly there's nobody there anymore, but we
mm,
know that it is the case just because of those experiences. So that it's weird only because it's not familiar.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, we once said that science is also just another story, but I'm reading now this book. I don't know if you know that.
No, I don't know that. Bruce Hood.
It's
Okay.
very interesting. It's like yeah, also about the development of the brain in infants and how the self
Yes,
develop
yes.
like
Yeah.
as an illusion and uh, like by interaction with other people, and it's super
Yeah.
interesting, even if it's just a story, but it's yeah,
Yeah,
if
yeah. It is well, it is interesting. It's very interesting how that
you're
happens. Yeah, yeah.
in science, neuroscience and stuff like that, it it gives a lot of evidence as well that this is just an illusion. So
Mm, yeah.
very well. I didn't want to take up so much space now today, but I'm
What's this
very
thing called space and who are we talking about? I don't. I don't need
No,
an answer.
no, because I'm not the only person here in this group, and other people also want to talk about things. So, but I'm very grateful because it today was like this conversation made things much clearer for me, I guess.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, and I thank you for that too. That's been great. Yeah. Hmm.
Leonard, how much connected to your body was you while talking?
To my body, uh, not so connected. Yeah, it's yeah, I have really, yeah, some, well, maybe it's not true anyway. I mean, now that I'm talking to you, but it just because you're mentioning it now, I feel kind of connected, but it happens to me that I find access to the bodily sensations rather difficult sometimes.
How does it feel
You mean now, or because
now?
mm, um, yeah, yeah, mostly the sensations are in my feet and my legs, like a stream of energy or something like that going back and forth. And then it's also here in the middle of my chest that I feel there is something moving.
So what what was the what occurred to you, Rum, is to ask that question about Lennart being in touch with his body as he was talking.
I was just curious.
Hmm. So your question provoked for me this idea that when so what I was experiencing when I was interacting with Lennart was zero awareness of my body that I can remember. There were moments when it was the case, but mostly it was like, and it wasn't in the head either. There was, I have this image of an energy, for want of a better word. That's not a great description of it, but there's something like an energy that is flowing around, like a almost a coloured mist that was primarily the experience that was going on. So it was somewhere between a feeling and a well, thought's the only word I can think of, but it doesn't it's not very close to thought. But there's that something else that swirling that swirling even energy doesn't sound right, but there's a swirling mist of a coloured mist that was the prime experience for me as that was happening. And that, and I think of
Yeah.
what I just said, and it sounds like total gobbledygook.
But it was interesting because when we were talking, I didn't pay attention to it, and Remy somehow pointed or made me um, notice it because, of
Yes,
course, when I talk about my father and my childhood and those things, it kind of activates something in my body, but I didn't really pay attention to it. And that's interesting because it's even, yeah, it's more actual than this fantasy about my past with my father, you know? It's like, again, this,
yes, yes,
um,
that's right. Yeah. And when you say it activates something in your body, it's not like you're aware of muscles or skin or any part of your body like that. I imagine. I mean, for me, it's much more like there was this swirling mist of coloured gas in the body that was being active. That's my fantasy anyway. That's my description of my experience, but I can only present it as a kind of a fantasy.
yeah, actually, it feels rather refreshing. It doesn't feel heavy or anything.
Mm. Yes, one would hope it's releasing, or again, there's no right word. Releasing's not quite right, but an expanding, opening kind of experience. Yes.
For me, I feel like it's harder to not notice my body even when I'm talking. It's like it's too much. I can't ignore it.
Yes. Yes. Well, your body's very active, isn't it? I mean, from what I've heard you say in the past, your body's always very, very active in expressing what it feels.
The last 2 days was um, I was experiencing some. I was relating a lot to what Leonard was speaking about. This desire for connection and this intense feel of loneliness, and um, I'm feeling disgusted by the need for connection. Feeling um, and there was a lot of shame and a lot of uh, my throat was very intense that it's almost like it will break for how much I was suffocating. And there was a lot of crying and feeling. And there was a story I just I saw on the Facebook about a girl being locked in her home. It was like a sad story, and it like broke my heart. And the intensity, I felt release, significant release, and I felt actually happy somehow. It was it was I didn't understand like how the degree of a change from being very devastated to I'm actually happy. I'm actually this feels good. This feels I feel some the body is lighter. Um, but there's still like subtle contraction still in the throat.
So what happened to change from feeling devastated to feeling happy? What what was the connection there? What was the bridge between the two?
Some I was actually feeling genuine compassion for myself. And it didn't feel like for myself. It felt like for the suffering in general.
Mm-hmm.
And it was easier even for me to visualize the same pain with somebody else. It evoked in me even more feeling sorry and feeling compassion and for this person, even people I don't actually know. I just imagine in my head.
Mm-hmm. So so with the bridge was between that it's easier to feel it for somebody else than to feel it for yourself, but when you felt it for somebody else, you were also able to feel it for yourself.
Yeah.
Hmm. So what would stop you from going directly to feeling it from yourself, feeling it for yourself, straight, direct?
I can.
Because
It's just I said I can go
oh,
to myself.
you can, right? I thought you said you can't. Okay. Oh, excellent. All right, that's good. Yeah.
But for some reason I just felt compelled to just put it out there somehow, like
Yeah.
project it
Well,
on somebody else.
for good reason. There's a lot of suffering out there that could use that, isn't there? Hmm.
It's more like actively instead of feeling that love or compassion or whatever, it was like I'm actively doing it. It wasn't me just receiving, more like it was
Mm-hmm.
more like giving a hug than receiving a hug, for example.
Yes, yeah.
So maybe that's why my mind just projected outside to
Yeah,
have
could
that
be. Yeah.
feeling.
So a really great thing about that is that what you were experiencing was an expression. It was a putting it out, expressing is a kind of releasing as well, isn't it? It's the opposite of holding it in.
I wanted to ask a question about the last meeting. You said that you were able to have a relationship with your dad after he passed away. What do you mean?
Of course, I had a relationship before he passed away, but what I was really saying was it became a different relationship. And that different relationship was very much related to my recognizing his innocence in things while he was still alive, especially when he was reasonably healthy and virile. I could never please him. So even though he spent the last year of his life sitting in a chair with an oxygen bottle, he was still quite aggressive. And after he died, I was quite some time after he died, but I recognized that he was just an innocent. I even see him as an innocent infant uh, was just conditioned by the circumstances in which he grew up. Um, and his conservative nature meant that he wasn't going to change. So while he was alive, there was no way he was ever going to change. I once tried to talk to him about feeling stuff and he shut me down instantly. And that was many years before that. But he said, we don't talk about that stuff. Whereas after he died, I could see that he couldn't be any other way than the way he was because of his conditioning. And so with that innocence, there was also forgiveness as well for him being the way he was. And there was, I guess, I hadn't thought about it until just now as I'm expressing this, but I guess there was forgiveness for myself for desiring his approval as well. Quite, quite, that quite shaped my life quite a lot. That wanting approval. Why would I want his approval? That's a crazy thing, isn't it? Why would I want his approval? He's just a frail old man, really, in one way. But yeah, so the change in relationship was to do with recognizing his innocence in the whole thing. Whereas while he was alive, I guess I really wanted him to change. So part of when he was dead was that there was, of course, no hope anymore that he could change because he's dead. But yeah. So my feelings about him, the relationship I have, I guess, really, technically speaking, my relationship is no longer with him, but with my memory of him. But still, that relationship was different because of that. Does that answer satisfy you?
Thank you for sharing.
No worries. Yeah.
I
Well,
wasn't
thank you for
looking for a
asking the
specific.
question. Sorry.
I wasn't expecting specific answer. I was just curious about what you mean.
Mm. Well, I discovered something new in it because of your question. So thank you. Yeah. I hadn't realised that I'd forgiven myself at the same time. So that was pretty good. Mm.
I kind of can see now most of people's behavior is just like a cry for love.
Big time, yeah. And it's even an incredibly intriguing question. Why do we want that? Why do we want that love? Why do we, oh, dare I say, need it? I don't know if we need it, want it, but yeah, it's it's a whole other bag of mystery, isn't it? I mean, it seems a stupid question. Why do we want love? Of course we want love, but actually, why? What? It's easy to see what happens if we have none. Then we have all sorts of corruption to our human nature, don't we? So maybe because we're all broken is why we want it so much. Uh, I, I have some self-reflection about seeing everybody as broken. Of course, it's a projection, isn't it? That's funny too. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's also projection, but when you are a child, I mean, everybody will say you deserve to be loved when you are a child. But when you are an adult, somehow there's more the idea that you have to do something to deserve it. So maybe it
Yes,
has to do
yes.
with that as well.
Unconditional up to a certain age, and then it becomes conditional. Yeah. Yeah. And that's probably a pretty young age, isn't it? When the age of the loss of innocence maybe is when it changes. Maybe at 3 or 4, or who knows? Yeah.
The story that I saw on the Facebook, while I was feeling all these feelings, my mind just, the story was a brother is abusing his sister and beating her and locking her in her room. And my mind goes to him, like, what kind of pain he's feeling that he has to act this way. And
Yes.
and my mind make this scene where her sister is loving him, hugging him, and he's pushing her away. I don't know, my mind was just
Mm.
trying to see how this is happening
Mm,
or what's underneath it.
yep. And while he's pushing her away and being angry towards her, at the same time, he's really, really wanting her affection. So it makes even less sense. But he's hating her because he wants her to feel good about him. So I'm just taking your fantasy and extending it into my fantasy.
I think it's more complicated.
Of course, yes.
Especially here in our culture, there's a lot of conditioning and tradition and control over women's. It's almost like a virtue to be aggressive towards um, women in the family.
Mm, mm. That's not restricted to your culture by any means. That still exists in, I think, in almost every culture. Although we imagine that we're more enlightened these days, but that's still very much a part of every culture, I think. But maybe not quite as overt as it is in yours and some others as well. Mm.
Maybe, but I think here there is, you could say there is bragging about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's
It's
so
not
sad,
hidden.
isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. At least in our culture, we pretend that it's not the case, but it is a pretense. Yeah. I recognize it in myself, and it's kind of crazy because I know better, but I still recognize that there are those things, and it has to do with the willingness of my mother to do so much stuff in an uncomplaining way. She was a great martyr, and we get used to that. I don't want to be washing floors and doing the dishes, but I have no trouble when my wife does it. Yeah. Yes. So we have a long way to go when we recognize that stuff, don't we? We do. It's not going to change in one generation. Or maybe it can, but it's unlikely. I mean, I'm an old man, and in let's say 70 years of having a perception a perception of things, I have seen that change from being really overt to less overt, but we're we're not even 50% of the way in that 70 years to being really truly equal in our attitudes. Maybe we are 50% of the way, but probably not any more than that. So if your culture takes 70 years to get to where our culture is now, and our culture takes another 70 years to get to be fully equal, it's still a long time, isn't it? 150 years for it to happen. That sounds really pessimistic, doesn't it? And you, because you don't feel that way, stand out as a weirdo in your culture, I'll bet.
I'm not a man, actually, in the culture.
Yeah, yeah.
it's like this condition is like a soup is or a virus in the air somehow. It's like even things that I don't believe it, I can still relate to, I can still feel it. Or
Yes, yes, of
uh,
course, of course. That's conditioning, isn't it?
and I can understand the grip of the conditioning and the fear around like losing it or being humiliated by the family or the culture
Yeah.
and having to fit in. It's like I understand the fear. And this self-hate. And I was thinking like, well, if even if I did manage to overcome the self-hate, I won't be able also to express myself because I will still be hated from outside.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
it's also feel like we continue the conditioning by recreating the same environment with the same type of relationships, that we choose people to reject the same things we reject in ourselves, so we won't be able to actually express them. It's kind of demonic. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. So my my thoughts and feelings are that even if you don't know it, you are having an influence on the culture around you. Now, it's much more easy to say that it's obvious in that the people you come into contact with may be influenced by your attitude, even if it's unsaid, even if you don't have to express it overtly. They will see the way you relate to women, and so that will influence in some way something to happen. But it goes even further than that. And that is that, and it's kind of woo-woo stuff. But I believe that the vibes that you put out travel a lot further. You know, we have this spooky action at a distance, as Einstein called it, where we have things that there are mirror neurons that respond to others' perception of you, even at an unconscious level, mostly at an unconscious level, probably. But yeah, so you are part of a change, whether you realize it or not. And you may never see that outwardly in your lifetime, but you may. Who knows? Who knows? You know, what somebody said, I don't know who said, somebody maybe the Buddha or somebody said something like, if you want to change the world, you start with changing yourself. And that's kind of a bit woo-woo-ish, but yeah, I do believe, you know. So at one level, I can say yes. In my 77 years of life, I haven't seen much change, but it's equally true to say that I've seen a lot of change. So it depends on the perspective you look at things from, whether that's going to happen quickly or slowly, you know. And and look at the younger generation, you know. Is there a segment of the younger generation who feel much more like you do than like the traditional way of being? Maybe that's not obvious because you're not in contact with them, or maybe it is obvious. Maybe you see it on Facebook although the young people tend not to use Facebook, I think. I don't know about your culture, but maybe here I suspect they use WhatsApp a lot more than Facebook. Facebook's for older people, I think. I've heard that said anyway. Yeah. Yeah, so it's good you feel the way you feel, I think. That's really good. It's good you feel, it's even better that you feel the way I imagine you feel.
What do you mean?
I'm just playing with words here, but I mean, I at one level I can say I don't know you very well, but at another level I have my intuition about you is, and what I've heard you say is that you do have a much stronger sense of, uh, or a maybe it's more accurate to say a much weakened misogynistic attitude. But that extends way more than just attitude towards women. We're talking about attitude towards humans. We're talking about a humanistic outlook.
I see
And
it
go on.
as an attitude toward the self, really.
Yes.
It's not about gender or other people. It's just the same thing projected outward.
Yes. So that's what I mean by more humanistic.
Yeah.
Which is it's kind of is an interesting one. It's more related to reality. And we talk about reality, we talk about what's really going on. We talk about what's actual, not about social concepts.
I can relate to um, the desire for control, for um, seeking validation, and might not be to the same degree of physical violence, but it can be how it appears in me. It can appear as manipulation um, or just strong desire to just control.
Say that in a different way.
It's also maybe it can appear as a form of jealousy or and it's also linked to say, like a lack of self-esteem or self-worth. This desire, I want to make sure that you gonna uh, attend to my needs or give me what
Okay.
I want.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So if we put that in negative terms, we might say something that there is oh, how would I put it? There is it's really weird. How would you put a lack of self-esteem in negative terms? So it's to say there's a lack of self-esteem is a positive thing, isn't it? If we say that there's a instead of talking about a lack, if we talked about what is there, there's a contradiction here.
Self-hate.
Yes, self-hate. Okay, so if there is self-hate, there is the idea that having some control can do something about that.
It feels more like I'm not good enough and you can't love me because I'm not good enough. So I have to control you, manipulate you for you to love
Okay.
me
Yes, yes. Okay.
because I can't trust that you can love me.
Yes, yes. So to turn it, I can't trust that you can love me around the other way is to say that I do believe that I'm unlovable.
Yes,
So would we, if we look at the inverse of I am unlovable, it doesn't come to I am lovable. It comes to uh, a null point, a nothing. It's not an issue.
it's a denial, you could say.
Yeah, well, what I mean is that if you do believe you're unlovable, you can't fix that by becoming lovable. To remove the unlovable makes it a non-issue.
I don't follow. Like, are you speaking about the intention of behaviors or
Yeah, yes, yes. You're talking about fixing it by manipulating me or controlling others to imagine that you are lovable, or to remove their idea that you're unlovable.
I haven't think about it this way. I don't know.
So that's what I'm trying to. I want to encourage that the consideration of these things, and we just automatically go to, if I need to control you because I'm unlovable, the idea that if we change from unlovable to lovable does not remove the need to control. We need that control in order to keep you relating to a lovable. So the appropriate thing is to remove any idea of unlovable or lovable. And then what's left is not, there's no need for control anymore, because we know neither you nor me will think about whether you're lovable or unlovable. They'll just be
But
relating to what actually is.
I don't think that seeking for love actually the answer. The issue is it doesn't actually give love. So there's always a sense of wanting to control.
Mm. So if that
So it
sense of
doesn't
control was successful, what would it be doing?
it doesn't work.
So
It can't
why?
work.
No, right, I agree. So why would there be the desire for a sense of control? Because some part of you thinks it does work or it will work. Otherwise, why have it?
It's a fear response. It's it uh,
So is it that the sense of control is more about not feeling the consequences of being unlovable? Nothing to do with lovable or unlovable, but rather the consequences of feeling unlovable. Is that what the sense of control is doing?
yeah, you could say fear of being rejected or
Mm,
being
the consequences of being unlovable. Yes. Have you been listening, David?
Yes.
So give me a different perspective on which you're good at. A different perspective on what we've been saying.
Well, I have two different perspectives. The first one would be when you talk about love and the control arise, more that control you can explore about safety. It's more the the desire to connect with someone in a safe way. This is often because love doesn't mean anything really. You say I want love, but you mean doesn't mean anything. You want to feel tenderness, you want to feel heard, you want to feel touched, you want to feel seen, you want to feel all of this. This is more. If you use really more accurate word, your exploration will be better than love because love really, it's the meaning of love is lost. So this is the first thing that can be interesting, and the other one this is if you want to take the path of therapy. Explore your feelings, your story, how to have a different way of living in the world, and all of that is very nice. And the other one would be no one can love you, literally. So you don't have to worry about that because you're never in touch with someone else's feelings. So you're always or only in touch with what you project on others. So if someone come and touch you, you maybe will feel loved, but you have no idea what the touch is about. You project on raw sensation, you project a story, and then you feel loved. But again, it's everything is in you. So you when you see that nothing leave your own experience, like if you think something, the thought never leave your own experience, and if you feel something, this feeling never leave your own experience. So because it is like this for you, it is like this for everyone else. So even if someone loves you, his love never translate into here anyway. So this is the two different perspectives that I'm seeing.
I there is I feel like there can be communication, but I can't prove it. So
Another way to frame it, oh, tell me.
I feel like when you say that the feelings, my feelings can be felt by someone else, and someone else can't feel my feelings, that to me seems like a theory. Because in the experience, it feels that there is connection. I can't prove it, but how it feels.
Yeah, you are right. They are both are theories, and both are valid depending on how you want how you want to explore. It's valid to say, oh, someone is crying, and I'm feeling sadness. Oh, I'm feeling his sadness. It's valid, but you can prove it. It's impossible for you to prove it. But it's the same with what I'm saying. You feel sadness, you cannot really absolutely be sure that is not the one or the other. But you know, it's not about accuracy. It's just frameworks, and it's not that one is wrong and the other one is correct. I know that what I'm saying, it's not a lot of people like it because now the tendency is about empathy and Buddhism and psychology and oh, I feel you, I'm hear you, and it is great. I mean, I'm doing that sometimes. It's beautiful. It's one way to do it. There is other ways that are completely valid too, and um, in both there are benefits and disadvantage in both of them. The problem I see with people who hold is I feel the other sensations. The problem often is boundaries. We have we have we haven't learned to build healthy boundaries with others. So if you hold this frame that you feel what the other is feeling, suddenly you spend all your day feeling everyone's feelings, and you are completely lost constantly. If someone comes and is angry, so you feel anger or fear or whatever, and then the responsibility is outside of you. I mean, even in communication, do you agree that whatever you are hearing right now, it's an interpretation that your mind is doing? Do you see that, right?
Yeah, I can only understand what I think I understand.
Exactly. So now I'm having an understanding, and say, oh, I want to express this understanding. So I go to my big inner dictionary, this definition. I pick up some words, some sounds, words. There is some sound making, and the sound come out. But do you receive all of this information that is seemingly here, or do you receive only sound?
But I feel like I agree with you that from this perspective, the communication is just an interpretation. But I feel like there's some layer where there's a shared something. I don't know what it is. I can't describe it. Um,
I agree with you. Something is shared, but I think it's we put it in terms of physical objects. This is where I disagree. You know, like yeah, you and me we are talking, so you are there in a body, I'm here in my body, and there is space between us, or electricity, or somehow, and the sound is traveling through this space to your ear into some physical body, right? So seeming, so the mind is building a whole physical world where connection happens. But there is connection, but it is not through this imagined world that the mind is building. So it is interesting what through what connection and communication travel, or how do we communicate really? I think it's a very interesting question. I had a dream last night, and I was speaking to someone in my dream. But in the experience of the dreaming, I was speaking, he was answering, there was meaning here, he was saying something, I was discovering his meaning, and all of this. Great, it's perfect. But the fact is that all of it was in one mind, was in one indivisible thing or whatever, and everything was spontaneously present. So even if there is communication, it is not how we think it is. And can be so deep that we don't know, you know. we like experts of communication say it, right? That you think the communication go through the word, but often it's the face that you do, the movement, and probably an infinity of other things that are connected to it. But I don't know, I think it's very interesting just to explore, because it's not as simple as we put it often. Like, I want to be loved. Okay, so I'll go to my mother, I will speak to her. She will say, "Oh, I love you." She will take me in her arm, and then I feel loved, and everything is it's fine. Or my girlfriend or whoever.
I feel like love is like a conditioned term that can be applied to different meanings. Like love is to be strong, love is to be controlling, love to be whatever. And is to be seen, accepted by someone, or
I don't use this word in my life.
it just how it can appear.
What?
That's this feeling of, could say, lack, or feeling of longing or seeking, this energy of searching for something can take any form.
I think the seeking energy is not bad in itself. It's seeking in the wrong place that is bad. That is inaccurate. That's all.
What do you mean?
Like if I want to buy meat, I'm seeking to buy meat, a piece of meat, and I go to a vegetarian restaurant. Well, I'm seeking something in a place that I will never find it. So the seeking often is a seeking of feeling complete, a seeking of acceptance, a seeking of some object, right? That something. Well, if and often we seek this in the wrong place, in imagination, in interpretation, in concept, in a world that you're not in contact with.
I feel like if I'm seeking an object, the right place would be the object thought space. Like it's like
Yeah.
if I'm seeking having control or power, I would seek it in the places that I can have that kind of experience. But you could say that what we're seeking is not really what we're seeking, or we think we seek what we want, but it begins with an assumption of what we want. Like
but you see, this is what we use the word seeking in two different ways. And that's like you say, someone is seeking control. Someone doesn't seek control. It is not control that you seek. You seek what you believe that control will give you. So in reality, you seek safety. That's what you want. You want safety. So you are seeking safety, but the mind is thinking you will have this safety, which is not an object to be found. You will find this in the controlling the world, in the wrong place, in the physical world. Like
yeah,
I want a wife. You don't want a wife. You want to feel loved. So it's not the wife that you want. It's the love that you believe that the wife will give you. So seeking
yeah,
love, it's fine. I can understand it, but the man will say, it will move this natural seeking into a world that you cannot find it.
That's what I mean also. It's like you think you seek something and you discover there's an underlying reasons behind it. And maybe you can discover there's more underlying reasons. So the more you look.
Yeah, well, more than underlying reason is just to see the mechanism of thinking. Because seeking, it's really a misunderstanding. It's a misunderstanding. It's the misunderstanding that there is another here possible and there is another now possible. Once this belief is in place, seeking will just spontaneously arise. But if you are very clear that now it's only space possible and here it's only possibility available to you, you cannot seek. Seeking, it's impossible.
So is there seeking in the right place or there isn't?
Well, it's a very interesting question because in seeking, it's fine. But when you start to seek in the right place, seeking starts to disappear. So it's kind of a snake that is eating its tail, you know. And at some point, seeking stop and exploring and enjoying starts, and it's a completely different taste. You move from
Seeking this,
I don't have enough. Oh, tell me.
I was just repeating what you said, like, or rephrasing, seeking disappear when it's in the right place. Trying just to feel what it means.
Imagine you are traveling. Okay, you are traveling in France, and you search a little town which is called Toulouse. Okay, you are searching Toulouse, and you are in Paris, and you take the train, the bus, the train. You descend here, you take the train again, and after you're in a city and you cannot find it in your map where you are, and you are asking people, where is the city? Where is Toulouse? Where is Toulouse? Where is Toulouse? And you're just searching, seeking, searching. Where is Toulouse? At some point, someone will tell you, but you are in Toulouse. Look around. This here is Toulouse. This is Toulouse. You are here. And okay. So okay. So there's no more seeking anymore. There's just, okay, so this is Toulouse, so let's just explore Toulouse. So then you are not searching for Toulouse. You are exploring Toulouse, which is different. You're not seeking for a city, another place. You are just, okay, this is a place to visit, to explore. So this is what I'm saying. You are searching for an experience, for example, where right now you are having an experience, and luckily for you, this is the only experience that you can have. So explore it. It's, it's not about seeking anything. What happens is when you stop seeking, after there is this thought sensation that it's not enough. Okay, but it's boring. It's no, I don't. What is this? You know. So you arrive at Toulouse, and Toulouse is boring. It's boring to you because you had expectation, because you wanted to see some very specific thing, and you cannot find it in Toulouse. So suddenly Toulouse is boring. But the experience is not boring. What is here is not boring. It's just like you don't have developed the sensitivity to enjoy it. So now you are not seeking something else. You are more starting to really get used to what is here in the moment. It's a little bit different. Makes sense?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Dave.
Don't confuse seeking with exploring what is here. It has a different taste to you.
So it's really the recognition that you are in Toulouse that when seeking drops. Or more accurately, the recognition that seeking is no longer required because you are in the place, you are in Toulouse. So if you are seeking Toulouse and you come to a little village and you ask people, is this Toulouse? And they say no, then you keep seeking. But you might find yourself in a town and you ask somebody, is this Toulouse? And they lie to you and say, no, it's not. Then you keep seeking, even though you're in Toulouse. But then you see a sign that says Toulouse, and you go, I don't need to seek anymore. I'm here. So it's the recognition that seeking no longer serves you when it drops.
We can even make it more funnier. When you see the sign, maybe someone puts the sign there, you know, so you don't know if you're in Toulouse either.
Yeah.
So maybe at some point you just decide, okay, I'm in Toulouse. Wherever here is Toulouse to me.
It's very obvious for me that seeking always happens in the mind. Like I can only seek a thought, and it's like the thought is an image that my mind make it like a 3D, and I just be lost in this image, but it's just an image. It's just a flat thing. But the seeking happens even with this knowledge. It's like, I know it's an imagination, but I'm gonna seek it in a way, because something isn't right here. It doesn't feel right in this.
Mm.
I don't know really what you really meant by this, but there is some natural impulse of the body and the mind. So if you're uncomfortable, the body will seek and will move to another place. And then it's bad if it move again. It maybe shift this, it will do some movement. So the let's not make like everything about seeking, like everything it's some kind of I have to be like a rock and be able to never move. And even, I mean, let's just, I just want to point out that there is some human natural impulse to find some equilibrium. You know, if you have pain in the
So
stomach, there will be some kind of natural impulse to do something about it, and it's fine. This this is not what I'm talking about the end of seeking.
how to discern between the two, like when you are seeking for some natural impulse of the body, or you are seeking an imagination, or sometimes the seeking isn't for an object, but can be away from a feeling or sensation. So, like, is seeking when seeking for example, a relationship, some type of human connection, when is that a natural impulse of the body, or when it's imagination, or when it's um, there is a lot of assumptions or narrative or imagination about what it can give me.
The body can't imagine anything. So when it's about the body, it's about what the body feels. And if the body's
But it
feelings go on.
but it appears as an image or
Yes,
a
of
thought.
course. And here's the trick. All seeking is always about something in the future. And when you realize that, it's totally irrelevant what that something is because it doesn't exist. It's an imagination. It's about the future. So when you find something, it's in the present. Or more accurately with seeking, when you recognize that seeking can no longer serve you, it's a recognition, a discovery in the presence. So seeking drops, not because you drop it. It's seeking drops because it ceases to be useful, because it is recognized that there is no point in seeking. What you thought you were seeking is an illusion. It's a
I can
fantasy
recognize
about the
that.
future. Yeah.
I can recognize that in some of the things that I was seeking or interested in. Now that I see them, that just thoughts and empty, they don't mean anything, and they just fall. And I'm not sure when, for example, when I feel loneliness and there's a desire or a longing for connection.
That's a fantasy.
So
So you imagine that that connection is going to fix your loneliness. You feel the loneliness. That is actual. The idea that a connection will fix that is fantasy. Now, whether it will or not is another story, but the idea that it will fix it, that you need that to fix it, is an idea, just an idea. But the
how
loneliness,
about,
that is actual.
so is there a value of connection, human connection?
Yeah, I think there is. That's got nothing to do with what we talk about, though, is it? So where's the
That's
connection
my
between
question.
loneliness and connection? Where's the bridge between loneliness and connection? One is actual and one is a fantasy. So there's a story that says, and that's the bridge, the story that says, if I have connection, that will fix loneliness. That's also just a story.
But isn't like a natural thing? Like this is how it appears. Like
Yes, that is natural. That's right. It's very usual. It's a conditioned response too. So if you explore, so instead of seeking connection, you explore loneliness, then you very likely will get to a point where loneliness isn't loneliness. Loneliness is something else. And there'll be stories involved with that. So it's not about fixing the loneliness. It's about why the loneliness is there.
I feel like I understand what you mean, but my question is not about the loneliness. Like feeling the loneliness, dealing with it, whatever, it's one thing. I'm speaking about seeking something that can be a natural desire or need of the body, or it can be um, an expectation of what it can give me.
Mm.
So how a natural movement of the body feels like when it's just natural? That's my question.
Everything is natural. Bakir,
So what we're talking about,
everything is natural.
imagination.
Everything is natural. If you kill
So
someone
let me,
because you're out of rage, it's a natural impulse that you have. I'm not talking about morality. I'm not saying that you have to do it. I'm just saying that from this perspective, that's natural, a natural thing to do to you, for you, in the moment. Everything is natural. I just sense that there is something wrong with this or with that.
no, I'm
Everything
not
is,
saying,
it's a,
I feel like there's
so everything
like
is a natural.
semantics.
No, but the body have natural impulse. Like now I'm thirsty. So there will be a tendency to seek for water. Whatever water is, whatever thirst is, there is some kind of impulse there. Okay. And there is some psychological needs. And just like the physical needs, you let those impulses unfold in the best way possible. So if you are hungry, you probably eat what feels natural to you. And if in your psyche you need to be around a lot of people, well, you will maybe be surrounded with a lot of people. Or if you are more lonely, you will be more tendency to be alone. But this is psychological impulse. It's fine. There's nothing to it. I don't see where's the trouble. If you're lonely, well, do your best to feel connected, whatever connection means. Some people feel connected to trees, to birds, to God, to dogs, to people, to mountains. So to God, whatever God is, some people can feel a lot of connection with that. So fine, seek connection. And I don't see where's the trouble there. I don't understand where is you struggle with that.
I struggle with it um, because it feels it feels like I'm denying myself the connection because of conditioning, you could say. And when it feels lonely, there is a judgment of that won't satisfy that the sense of loneliness. And it's not a judgment it's like based on experience. When there was connection, there wasn't really receiving of it. So I know that it's not gonna, the answer isn't in the connection for this loneliness. But still there is a desire for connection that isn't being attended to because fears or whatever psychology happening here. So it's like it's challenging to move in whatever direction. I don't know if I'm clear.
Sounds to me like you've got two fantasies fighting each other. So you've
Yes.
got. Yeah. So what come to mind too with David's analogy of thirst. So you can say, I feel thirsty, so I seek a water to drink. And what came to mind is seeking water is a fantasy. Right? There is the thirst, and there is the desire not to feel the thirst. So if somebody cuts up a watermelon and gives it to you and you eat watermelon, you may no longer feel the thirst. Right? It wasn't about water, it was about curing the thirst.
But also there is a movement towards water.
Because of the fantasy that water will fix it. And there is a movement towards connection because there is a fantasy that will fix loneliness. And then, as you say, in real life, we often can't accept the connection, so therefore it doesn't fix it. So fixing loneliness is not about having connection.
So what is the meaning of connection? Like, why connection?
Well, that's another story, isn't it? Altogether, so are we jumping from one story of loneliness to another story of connection?
Why drink water?
As you can. I don't know. That's probably just the most common way of fixing thirst, and connection may be the most common way of fixing loneliness, but that's
you just
looking
said
at it
it's
backwards.
fantasy.
Sorry?
So is drinking water to fix thirst, is it a fantasy or not?
Drinking water is not the fantasy, but thinking that drinking water is the fantasy. So, but is it about drinking water or is it about thirst? Get it straight. This is the issue. Is it about loneliness or is it about connection? They're two different things. They're two different stories, but they're not connected like you think they're connected. I just showed you can cure your thirst by eating watermelon, not drinking water. You don't have to drink water to cure your thirst. It's just and that's just the most common way it's fixed. You might drink coffee, or you might drink tea, or you might drink, who knows? So you've got a cause and effect issue there.
That's why I was offering you a way to approach it that solve both of the issue at the same time. which is you cannot be in contact with anything else but your experience. In that way, there is no connection, there is no loneliness. There's just this that is here. So you can allow yourself to feel not lonely, you can allow yourself to feel connected, because both doesn't really matter one way or the other, because both are in you. But this is kind of a direct path, a non-dual approach. If you want to approach connection and loneliness through psychology, there is beautiful ways to do it, and I did it a lot. Which you go as a baby, and then you the whole process, and someone holds you, and it's beautiful. It's healing things. But this is not my impression that this is not what we are focusing on in those meetings. But I think the most interesting, like you are seeing that you are the one depriving yourself of whatever connection is. Because you say, I felt lonely, there was a connection, and I felt that I deprived myself of this connection. So I think connection or loneliness, okay, can go there, but it's interesting to see that you are seeing that you are the one which is depriving yourself of what you want. See, I think this is very,
on
very
that
interesting
note,
part.
that's a good one. On that note, though, so what is connection? So let's imagine that connection is how you will feel about yourself when you imagine that somebody else is understanding you, or somebody else is, how can we put it, connecting with you. If somebody is connecting with you, what's happening? You feel a sense of acceptance, or you feel that you are understood, or you will feel that you are approved of. But everything that I'm saying is how you feel about yourself. So the consequences of what we call connection is a change in your self opinion. This is exactly what David's saying. It's got nothing to do with other people. So in 5 years' time, I'll give you an app called artificial intelligence, and you can talk to that, and it will absolutely make you feel like you're understood, and you will have a sense of connection, and you will feel good about yourself. And you're talking to a computer. Or if you think it's a person, it might be more easy to feel like you're understood. But still, it is about your opinion about yourself, or your attitude towards yourself that we're talking about. We're not talking about a physical connection. That's just like water. It's the most obvious way of doing it, but nevertheless, it's not the only way. And it's not, yeah.
It's clear for me that it's about me. It's about my interpretations, my whatever.
Yes, yeah. So how does connection do that?
Connection is just, it's not really about connection. Connection is just
Well, you said it exactly.
this is it's more about something is lacking.
Yes, now you're getting there. Yes, absolutely. Something is lacking, and that
So,
results in a thing called loneliness or whatever. Yeah.
but I want to recognize that it can have some aspects similar to drinking water. It's just
Yes, yes, for sure. I agree. Yeah.
meaning that I can't survive alone in the desert. I need people in that sense.
You need a
And
horse with no name. So I'm just being funny.
So I don't want to, because this is my tendency, was to just disregard the whole thing of a relationship. So I'm just recognizing that and trying to see that, no, it's whatever I'm projecting or expecting from a relationship is my own thing, but a relationship is still valuable.
Yes, yes, I agree. Yeah, I don't deny that.
So that's the challenge I'm having with
Mm.
is
I imagine that Louise has some thoughts about this.
Morning, afternoon. Yeah, this has come up this week actually. It's really funny as I'm listening to you speaking, Ramiz and David, and there's this, what I've noticed as I'm listening is there's a story that's gone, like it seems to have, well, it's got no legs anymore. It's just not even forefront. I'm part of a 12-step program, and I just find that I'm not going to the meetings anymore because it doesn't make sense. Like this, I want to go a little bit further. I want to go a little bit deeper. And then I had this thought that I need to go so that I have friends. It was quite strong. Like if I don't go to that, if I am not part of that group, then I've got nobody. Like it literally was that. And then I kind of saw through that. And then I had this interaction with my mum on the phone the other day, which it was so blatant what happened. There was something unconscious that came up that for me to see, that for many years on a conversation with my mum, about 3 minutes in, something closes down, the whole, this system just closes down and it wants to get off the phone quickly. And so she asked me how was my weekend. I started to describe, and halfway through the description, she just said, "Well, how's Ace," which is my other son. And then I just noticed what the body was doing. It just kind of just shut down. And then I found myself saying, "Oh, I was just in the middle of explaining the weekend," and she said, yes, I know, but how's Ace?" And in that moment, I just realized for her, that was just her way of operating. She's running a script, and it's just, but for so many years, I had felt that was me, that I had been doing something wrong. I couldn't relate to somebody. I couldn't communicate. I was boring. So many stories, but in that moment, I could see, I don't know if any of this relates to what you were saying, actually. I could see that it wasn't me, it wasn't her, it was just two conditionings coming together with a load of stories on top. And afterwards, the novelty of seeing through that, got quite excited about it. I think I even emailed Vince, but I just have such compassion for my mum. And there's like this compassion for here, because like there's a bit of an adjustment of what I like. There's a recognition of what I wanted from my mum can never, like, it's like going to the vegetarian restaurant asking for a meat dish. Like, it's just not going to be possible. And so, you know, and then I started to think, well, maybe I can make my description shorter. But then I just realized, just go into a telephone conversation with no expectation, with, and this is doing again, but like just knowing what I know now, I just wonder how that will be different, because I don't expect anything from her, but I also know, like, there's like a relief that it's not all those stories either. It's not all that stuff that I thought about me, and I can't. It's just disappeared. So that connection with my mum, probably not going to be through words, and probably going to be quite high level about the weather and high level topics like that. But I love her. I love that I'm her daughter. I don't need to change her. I don't need to fix her. I don't need to fix me. These are just two what? I don't know.
Yeah, two unknowns, yeah. And the brilliant thing that I see from the perspective of the conversation with Ramiz about connection is that it's not that you now believe that connection won't happen. It is that you have stopped the unrealistic expectation that connection could happen in the way you've been trying to have it happen all your life, and that you'll now explore the possibility of a different kind of connection or a different mechanism for connection. Yeah. In fact, there is a tangible connection there from you because of that compassion you now have for your mum. So there is that is a connection. Yeah. And if we go back further in Ramez's conversation, we get that not only was that a futile attempt for connection, but that connection was a futile attempt to not feel, or I won't say loneliness, but estranged from your mum. Which is kind of like a loneliness, a kind of form of loneliness. So you are able to have a different outcome now that you have compassion for yourself and for mum, and there's an acceptance of the situation, which is opening immense possibilities. And so it's not about connection anymore. It's about whatever that feeling was that we were chasing.
Yeah, and the need to plan ahead and look into how a relationship should be, all that stuff. It doesn't have to be words. Just
no, it will explore. Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Does that seem relevant to you, Ramiz?
Yeah, it seems the connection is within me. It's like I can connect to people when I can connect to the parts that they are represent in me.
Yep.
So
and really interestingly, and this is just something that's come to mind for me, I have connection with people who they don't know I've got connection with them because it's not really about them. But because of that, this is pretty weird. Because of that, if asked, they would probably say yes, they have connection with me. So, yeah, okay. I won't try and explain that one. That was a bit weird. Yeah.
I think it can also be the other way around.
Yeah, that's a bit trickier, that one. Yeah, because you're expecting something of somebody else then.
No, I mean, I can relate to someone.
Hmm.
Without them relating back to me.
Yes. But it's all, yeah. But there's it's not an irony. I don't know what the right word is, but yes. So if you do that, they will all automatically relate back to you. And maybe they will, maybe they won't. But yeah, chances are they probably will, simply because you are relating to them and they pick up on that. They can't not respond in a way. They may not. They don't have to, but they probably will. So it sounds like there's some interesting exploration about to happen in that area. For me too. This is what I mean. I do these meetings because, wow, I get so much deepening out of this. You know, a lot of these things I've never thought of like this before. You know, from that perspective, it's great. Thank you. Yeah. Anyway, we're just coming up to 3 hours, so I think we should we'll call it a halt, eh? It's good when there's only a couple of us here. We get to look at things in depth. That's great. Yeah. Okay. Happy to finish? Right. All right. I'll see you all later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.